Hi. So here we are in Book 9. I would recommend that you read the passage from Genesis that's in chapter 3. Chapter 3 is where the story of the Garden of Eden is that we have here. One of the things that you'd be shocked at if you've never read the passage before, there's a couple things. One, it's really short. Okay, the Garden of Eden story goes very quickly. Right? There's not a lot of hemming and hawing going on. And interestingly, the story of the serpent doesn't say anything about the serpent being Satan in that section. Now, later in the Bible, perhaps through a tradition or something like that, it became the idea that the serpent was Satan. But in the initial Genesis passage in chapter 3, it doesn't say that. Okay. Now, when Milton begins Book 9, right, one of the things that he does almost immediately is he says, it's all changing now. Okay. So the first part of Paradise Lost that deals with Adam and Eve, they are in paradise, right? Everything's all good. Now, we left off Satan, right, in Book 2, leaving hell and flying up through chaos on his way to earth, right? Well, at the time we get to Book 9, the angels are aware. Okay, the angels are aware, and they are trying to guard Adam and Eve. They're trying to guard earth. But they don't really know where Satan is. They don't know how he's going to approach. And they've tried to tell Adam that he needs to be cautious. Okay? That there is an enemy that seeks his destruction. Milton begins Book 9 with the discussion of how we're going to move from these wonderful images of domestic life that we've seen before, right, in the paradise part of being in the Garden of Eden. And he says, no more of talk where God or angel guest with man, as with his friend, familiar used to sit indulgent and with him partake rural repast. In other words, God and the angels aren't going to be hanging out with Adam anymore. Right? They're not going to be on that kind of level of friendship anymore. I must now change these notes to tragic. Foul distrust and breach disloyal on the part of man, revolt and disobedience. On the part of heaven now alienated, distance and distaste, anger and just rebuke and judgment given, that brought into this world a world of woe, sin and her shadow death, and misery death's harbinger, sad task yet argument not less but more heroic, than the wrath of stern Achilles on his foe pursued thrice fugitive round Troy wall. So, even as he's talking about how horrible this is, what Adam and Eve did, the result of the story is heroic. A greater heroism than even the wrath of Achilles, which of course is from the Iliad, right? In other words, we're still referencing the classical period, right? The Iliad, for example. He references other older stories as well. And he even says, hey, this is not going to be about knights in shining armor, right? What is it, line 30? With long and tedious havoc, fabled knights in battles feigned. Feigned doesn't mean fake, as we would talk about it now, but just the idea that these are the stories that are told. So we're not doing the heroic knights that we might see in King Arthur tales, Gawain and the Green Knight, or even in Sir Edmund Spenser's Faerie Queen, if those of you who are familiar with that work, right? We're moving away from that kind of thing. That's what the old stories were about. Physical battles. Beowulf. Milton didn't know Beowulf. But he's talking about that kind of thing. We're not doing the physical battles. This is a different sort of heroism. Now, what's interesting, of course, is that when Satan makes his entrance into the garden, right, he has to come in basically through an underground river. And he comes up through basically the mist near the tree of life. Okay, now there's a couple trees, right? There's the tree of life and there's the tree of knowledge of good and evil, right? The second tree, the tree of knowledge, that's the one that they're forbidden to eat from. Okay. And when Satan enters into Eden, he enters into the body of the serpent, the snake. As I said, in the Old Testament, in Genesis, it's not said that this is Satan. But here, which of course has a very long tradition, right? Let's look at line, what is that, 84? So we're talking about Satan. Considered every creature which of all most opportune might serve his wiles, and found the serpent subtlest beast of all the field. And because of that, he enters into the body of the snake. Now, he's kind of disgusted by the snake, right? He doesn't like being in this physical body. You know, he is, after all, this important Satan guy. An angel he had been at once, and now he's in this corporeal being that lies on the ground, right? It's kind of disgusting. But other than that, he's really blown away by what he sees on earth. And he says, that's beginning line 99, O earth, how like to heaven, if not preferred more justly, seat worthier of gods, as built with second thoughts reforming what was old. I mean, Satan looks at earth, and Eden in particular here, as this incredible place that's even more beautiful than heaven. Now, that's quite the compliment, and partly it's just flat out not true. Heaven is best because heaven is where God is, right? God lives in heaven. But in Satan's eyes, and this is just also a sign that he is already corrupt and fallen, he's already kind of forgetting what heaven is truly like, right? But the magnificence of earth is, hey, it's great, and that's important too, right? And he sees earth, and he talks quite a bit about it. I hope you can get into the reading of this and really see where he's going with this, because he talks about the pleasures and the just the wonderfulness of life that is in front of him, right? And he goes on with it quite a bit, right? Now, as I said, nevertheless, he doesn't like being in a snake, but Satan will, of course, stoop to conquer, so to speak. Now, when we look at Adam and Eve, we join them, okay? We join Adam and Eve. They are working in the garden, or they're starting their day to work in the garden. Now, it is called the Garden of Eden. It is not called the Wild of Eden. There's a big difference, right? Gardens are tended. Gardens are not just nature gone crazy, right? But they are pruned, controlled, and cut back and stuff like that. You got to keep a garden nice. That's something that you got to remember. Now, Eve starts off kind of complaining a little bit. We got to work every day doing the garden. And she thinks maybe if we split up, we can do this faster, get more done. Adam, it's like, no, we don't want to split up. First of all, right, this isn't really work, okay? You know, this is something we should be enjoying, right? You are my wonderful wife, yeah, but you're wrong. Seriously, Adam. The first one to find out. You don't want to say that. Here's something else you probably don't want to say. Certainly not in the 21st century. Is he says, thy thoughts employed, how we might best fulfill the work which here God hath assigned us, nor of me shall pass unpraised. For nothing lovelier can be found in woman than to study household good, and good works in her husband to promote. Yeah, so this is what the good wife is supposed to do. Come on, Eve, right? Let's not tear this down. Then he reminds her, we have a foe, we have an enemy that is after us. Probably not a good idea for us to be splitting up, right? She doesn't like this. She doesn't like this at all, right? She argues back, and she's kind of like saying, "What are you telling me there, Adam?" Right? And she says, "Because that thou shouldst my firmness therefore doubt to God or thee, because we have a foe may tempt it, I expected not to hear." Right? Where is that? That's about line 277, 278. In other words, really? That's how much you think of me? Wow. God, I didn't know that. Right? And he's backpedaling fast. He's like, oh, no. I just don't even want to be insulted by the attempt on you. Okay. Well, this goes from bad to worse pretty quickly. And essentially, Adam agrees to split up. Adam agrees to split up. And there is a very important passage before we move on. It begins about line 350. Like God left, this is 351, excuse me. God left free the will. For what obeys reason is free, and reason he made right. But bid her well beware and still erect, lest by some fair appearing good surprise she dictate false and misinform the will to do what God expressly hath forbid. So we have free will, okay? So we can do what we decide to do, but what looks good, right, appearing good, may not be truly good. All right. Well, we kind of know what happens after this, don't we? They do split up. Satan sees Eve. He's blown away by her great beauty, of course. Right? But then he recovers. And his seduction of her to eat the fruit is essentially based on this idea, the corruption of God. He appeals to her vanity. He said, God knows that if you have this fruit, you'll be like him. He doesn't want you to be like him. Right? Look at me. I'm a serpent and now I can talk. Right? So I ate of the fruit and I was raised up. You are already so high up here. If you eat the fruit, you'll be raised up higher too. She eats the fruit. I want you to think long and hard about why. That's one of the discussion questions. Adam, when he sees Eve later on, he knows immediately something's wrong. And when he hears about the fruit, he's upset. But you know what? He stays and he eats the fruit too. And again, that's another question. Why does Adam do this? Why does Adam choose to disobey God and obey Eve instead? To stay with her? That's something I want you to think about as you encounter this final book.